Wolfpack, what's going on? Your boy, the Wolf of Roto Street, rotostreetjournal.com. We breed and feed you fantasy wolves. Here with your Week 10 Waiver Wire and FAAB show. I can't believe it. We're already in the double digits, folks. This season is flying by. And yeah, sure, we do get the extra week this year, but that doesn't change the torrid pace we're on and the necessity of getting that Week 10 win. Unfortunately, this week's waiver wire is not all that loaded. There are certainly a couple very viable one-week stream rentals, a couple big names that are out there in about 30 to 40%. There's not a ton of all this available talent, though. There are 3 to 4 players I like that are like 0% owned. I'm going to get into those guys in a little bit. But there's nobody, like if you have the number one waiver priority, it's probably a week to sit this one out, wait it out, let that build up, gain some value. It seems like the waiver wire just continues to alternate week in and week out when it's going to be sexy, when it's going to have talent. And this is not the sexiest of weeks. But there are still plenty of names. If you need a win, some great one-week pieces, and then definitely some intriguing stashes down the stretch. So come on in, Wolfpack. If you haven't already, please consider giving this a thumbs up, whether you're here live with us, whether you're catching the replay. This tends to be one of our better shows. It's awesome. We appreciate you being here. And of course, as always, you can find me at RotoStreetWolf as well to let me know how your waiver wire is going. In shallower leagues, you want to go first check for Kenyon Drake, J.D. McKissic, Nyheim Hines, and Brandon Ayuk. We'll start with Drake real quick. He's got 13 or more fantasy points in half PPR leagues in 3 straight weeks since the new interim head coach took over. Don't know why that's a parallel, but he just seems to be getting Drake more and more involved this week, especially as a wide receiver. 6 catches, 70 yards through the air, in addition to 30 yards as well on the ground. The heaviest, most highest workload and total yardage share of the season. Jacobs continues to preach too. Let's get this guy more and more involved. It's not like a situation that's tenuous and they're causing each other headaches. Jacobs likes this involvement for Kenyon Drake, his former teammate. So 17 touches went to Jacobs, or opportunities rather. 12 went to Kenyon Drake. Pretty close to a near even split. And Drake just continues to get it done. They have the Chiefs coming up this week. So some very viable streaming upside, plus the fact that we see Jacobs limp off almost every single week. And also at the running back position, we talked about Nyheim Hines, 74 yards on the ground, his longest career rush. All of it came against the Jets. So let's take that one with a grain of salt. But he's also involved as a receiver with 4 catches, 34 yards, by far the most of his season with 108 scrimmage yards. It's very solid. Intriguing to see, and by far the highest involvement we've seen in weeks. He got dropped by a ton of owners, and I do think this is a guy that could carve out a meaningful role moving forward. Yes, Jonathan Taylor's smashing week in and week out, but we know they want to rotate backs, and we're seeing Hines show that juice that made him such a viable, like, late-round best ball pick throughout this year. Could see that happening again. I do also love, probably even a little bit more, that's J.D. McKissic, who did get cut in a ton of leagues. Don't forget, in back-to-back weeks heading into this bye, he led the team in running back snaps. He had 83 receiving yards on 8 catches his last time out there. Gibson consistently is playing dinged up, not at full strength. So I do think McKissic will remain that. Now, coming out of the bye, maybe that got Gibson fully healthy, and now he's ready to rip, but I just don't see that happening. Even last week, or last time out rather, he was off the injury report, and he still had a very underwhelming performance. We still saw McKissic see more snaps, 32 to 23 for Gibson, and just a very pathetic output from Gibson as well. So I do think McKissic is going to be the more steady, consistent back down the stretch, and he's out there in nearly half the leagues. Go out there and get it, especially with how bad this overall defense is. They're going to always be in comeback chuck it mode. And also going to check for Brandon Ayuk at the wide receiver position. We talked about last week, season high in snaps, all that good stuff. Well, he continues to ascend in that sense. He ran 93% route rate, 93% snaps, and 20% target share, but was significantly more productive with 6 catches, 89 yards, and a TD. Perhaps most importantly, he fumbled and then went back in. He thought he might be the doghouse. This is the last we're going to see of Brandon Ayuk, but no, they stuck it out with him. He rewarded them with a big play touchdown with Deebo Samuel's calf potentially lingering. Don't forget that this guy was the number 3 receiver behind only Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams for an 8-week stretch last year. Could easily happen again if the talent and opportunity continue to rise to the top here. Those are the guys to check for first in your shallower leagues. Check that on out. But let's get to some guys that are out there in 50% or more of Yahoo leagues. And as we do, if you haven't, hit that thumbs up button. I know I beg for it, but it really, truly does help us get out to more people. If you haven't liked and subbed already either, and you enjoy the rest of this show, please consider doing that as well. We'd love to hit to 2K by the end of this season. We're getting damn close. I think we're about 150 total away. Would be awesome if you could support us towards that goal. Free things to do for us. Now let's talk about some big names out there. D'Ernest Johnson, 41% rostered. I'd say about 20 to 30% of your FAAB. If you're desperate, why? I mean, this guy was going to be on my cut list this week until earlier today. Nick Chubb has tested positive for COVID-19. Now, he is vaccinated. He could return by Sunday with 2 false tests here, but that hasn't happened yet this year. That's one of the few things that's been steady about this insane NFL season. So ultimately, I'm not expecting the Chubb to go. And we saw what D'Ernest Johnson did last time out. He was a top 5 running back that week with over 25 fantasy points, had 24 of 31 backfield touches. But his mate last time that ate into that workload, so 7 touches, went to Felton. He's also on the COVID list. They had to sign Brian Hill to just bring in a warm body as their running back too. I think we'd see a near 100% snap share for D'Ernest Johnson, all the receiving work, all the rushing workload, and certainly all the goal line work. So if you're in win now mode, if you have bad bye-week blues or just need a flex injection of 20%, 20 fantasy point upside here, I think D'Ernest Johnson brings that to the table. Now, granted, and this is what we say before every waiver wire show, of course, as I go through this list, prioritize your needs. If you don't need this 1-week rental, if you're looking more long-term, if you're a playoff bound, obviously anything can happen between now and now, but if you're looking good for the playoffs, this might not be your play if you don't need him. You don't need to go blow a ton of money for a 1-week rental if you're in good shape. But a lot of us scrapping around trying to convince get ourselves into this playoff push. Nobody brings better 1-week upside here than D'Ernest Johnson as the last man standing, truly last man standing of the Browns backfield. One of the few guys that you could blow your load for and actually know you'd get some value. Mark Ingram comes in with longer term value and is my number 2 pickup of the week, was number 5 last week. Hopefully you were able to sneak him in while he was cheaper, because I do think you're going to have to pay about 15 to 20% of your FAAB, whereas last week I got him for like $5 last week, and I don't even think anybody else bid on him. So a week early last week was nice. If you're catching up to the crowd, though, I do think it's going to be worth, compared to some of these other options, at least this week, a nice bid, especially given that Nick Underhill today reporting the Saints hosted 3 free agent running backs, suggesting that Kamara, there's whispers Underhill said, that he might have gotten a little banged up. If we get a game where Kamara sits, Ingram will be a smash top 15 play just alongside D'Ernest Johnson, but he also brings significantly more Mark Ingram long-term upside here. 43 yards on 9 carries, also had 5 receptions, more than Alvin Kamara, believe it or not, this past week, for 21 additional yards. We've now seen him come in there for about 30% of the rushing workload, about 30% of the running back receiving workload. Solid overall production here from Ingram. 20 touches or opportunities rather for Alvin Kamara last week compared to 14 for Mark Ingram. Not that far of disparity here. Certainly lowering Ingram's rest of season. Kamara's rest of season outlook, whereas Ingram looking rejuvenated. Nothing huge yet in a breakout type of performance, but it could be coming with that type of workload in a solid offense by one of the better lines in football. I want to keep harping on this guy. I know it didn't pan out huge this past week, but Van Jefferson, 43% rostered. He still needs to be well over half of leagues. I think he's worth 15 to 20% as my number 1 receiver ad of this week, assuming Brandon Ayuk is gone at least. He saw 7 targets, only holding 3 of them for 41 yards. Had those deep looks still on complete lockdown. Played. This was the key here. Yes, the final output, 7.1 PPR points, nothing special, nothing to go sprint towards. But he played over 90% of the snaps. Now that DeSean Jackson's gone, now that Tutu Atwell is done for the season, this 11 personnel, nobody runs 11 personnel more than the Rams here. He has that on complete lock, Van Jefferson does, running just as many routes as Cooper Kupp, as Robert Woods these past 2 weeks. And yes, those two are always going to be primary targets ahead of him, but he plays that very valuable field stretching role. In fact, he was entering this week just 100 yards away from Robert Woods, just about 30 fantasy. They were neck and neck in terms of their production. I still think you can get some nice usable upside almost every week from Van Jefferson, certainly when the matchup is ripe. It should have been against the Titans. They've kind of stiffened up these last couple weeks on defense, though. I expect some better weeks going forward for Van Jefferson and one of the first receivers I'd look to. I also really like, and some of you might even prefer, let me know what your thoughts are, Rashod Bateman. Love this guy as a player. 5 catches, 52 yards this past week on 8 targets. The 8 targets were a season high. The snaps, 66% of them were a season high, as was the 82% route participation rate, another season high. Granted, Sammy Watkins was out again. He is practicing this week. Decent chance Watkins returns to the field, and who knows how this shakeout will be. We haven't seen Bateman truly explode even with Watkins off the field. Could cap his ability, his path to doing so once Watkins returns, but he's still seen 22%, 14%, 19% target share. That's not bad for a rookie coming in off a big knee injury, getting his legs under him. We know this running game is mediocre, and they are just playing play after. They're always in the top of plays run each and every week. They get the Dolphins here on Thursday Night Football. That short week actually might keep Watkins off one more week, and an easy matchup, 4th most points allowed to wide receivers against those Dolphins. I could see Bateman having his true breakout on Thursday Night Football. We'll continue to wait for it, but the usage trends just continue in the right direction, and we know the type of prospect this guy is. We also know the type of prospect Elijah Moore is, and it's great to finally see it come to fruition. Was maybe my favorite sneaky wide receiver prospect coming into the season, but man, it has been dreadful so far. Started off with like negative yards in his first game and really couldn't find any footing while Zach Wilson was at quarterback. In fact, he averaged 5 points per game with Zach Wilson at QB. In non-Wilson starters, he's averaging over 20 fantasy points per game. He was the wide receiver 1, folks, this last week, and that's still with only running 51% of the routes. So on half of the plays, he was able to put up 7 catches on 8 targets, 84 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He needs to become a 100% route run type of participant, at least 75% moving forward, given the production we're seeing out of this guy after the catch, deep down the field, at every layer, he's getting it done. Such a savvy route runner. All the things we loved are finally coming to fruition for this guy. He does have the Bills coming up. Tough matchup there. But after that, it is a gravy schedule for the Jets. They're saying they're going to rest Wilson until he's 100% healthy, and I think that's kind of code for let's get Mike White under center as long as we can and use Wilson's health as an excuse so it's not like we're benching him if he's not fully healthy yet, right? I hope so, because this offense has been sparked by everybody other than Zach Wilson. Even Josh Johnson was a better player. It's a great scheme in that sense that anybody other than Zach Wilson's getting it done there. I think Elijah Moore has been a big part of that and will continue to be. And as you guys see here, I actually haven't been mentioning the FAAB. D'Ernest, again, 20 to 30% if you need that stream. I think Ingram about 15 to 20%. And then these 3 receivers all around that 15% range. And Van Jefferson, Bateman, Elijah Moore. It's going to start to go down pretty fast from here. But I think all of those guys have true, genuine upside for your stretch. Now, in terms of streamers, I do think Devonta Freeman, if you miss out on D'Ernest Johnson, you don't have the money to go get this guy for a 1-week rental. Freeman might be a sneaky, not the highest ceiling, but a floor play this week, going against a Miami team, giving up the 3rd most points to running backs. Freeman seems to really be carving out his niche here. He played 57% of the snaps. That was a season high for him. Also a season high, 15 touches going to Devonta Freeman compared to 11 for Bell. And most of Bell's, the vast majority, came in the second half as well. So they really were all in on Devonta Freeman, who put up his season high in fantasy points as well. He ran 32 routes to just 5 for Le'Veon Bell. He's now scored a touchdown in 3 straight weeks, averaging 5.7 yards per clip on the season, 81.4 PFF rushing grade. He's looking pretty damn good. As gross as it is to say, this is always one of the best run schemes in terms of Greg Roman's been so creative in the ways they use their backs, and Freeman is really starting to thrive. Last week was his kind of Mona Lisa with 13 carries, 78 yards, and a score on his catches, 2 catches on 4 yards. But again, that usage, the snaps, all of that stuff, in addition to the actual production, a lot of the underlying stuff you want to see, a lot of good formation. Maybe you take a look at Bell too, who had 11 rushes, 48 yards, and a TD. Looked like he had some more wiggle than we've seen in the last couple of years. He could be a desperate source of veteran snaps, assuming that Murray misses yet another game. Tyson Williams did not record a carry or a target. Completely and utterly useless on his 18 snaps. So just further evidence that both Freeman and then maybe a little bit of Bell have some good value moving forward. And again, after we get through the next half of the names, if you haven't already, consider giving us a thumbs up to help this grow, continue to help the pack. Wolfpack, a nice free way to do so. Another gross veteran back that could have some real value. I guess I said this week was kind of gross on waiver wires, but man, there's actually some players that you could just go out there and immediately toss in the lineups. Jordan Howard being another one of those ones. Only 15% rostered, 12% or so your FAAB. If you miss out on some of those other, again, Ingram, Freeman, and certainly Dearness Johnson as a streamer this week. You miss out on those guys, I think Howard could be their next best option, handling the most carries, 17, that any Eagles rusher has seen this year over the last week. He did look pretty damn solid with 71 yards, also scoring on the ground. He now has 3 touchdowns across his last 2 games since being activated for the first time this year, and looks just better than anyone I think expected after last year plotting out to like 1.5 yards per carry. This guy is ripping down the field, and so much so, Reuben Frank, an Eagles beat writer of NBC Sports, suggests that he's going to have to, Nick Sirianni, make Jordan Howard a permanent part of this offense, even when Miles Sanders gets back. That could be disgusting. And know that, and this reason he ranks lower here, is this is a Sirianni backfield that one week it's Boston Scott, one week it's Gainwell, the next week it's Howard. It's fucking whack-a-mole right now. And who knows if we're going to continue to get the positive enough game scripts that have allowed the Eagles to feed their back 66 times across their past 2 games. Keep in mind, folks, that the 2 games before that, they've fed their backs 27 times. You never know what's going to happen with this backfield. If we did, I think I'd rank Howard a bit safer, a bit higher, especially given that Gainwell had 2 rushes. He did, I guess, get into the end zone. Boston Scott, though, playing behind Howard, 10 carries for 40 yards, less usage, less snaps. I do think it's Howard moving forward when the matchups are right. The Broncos, not a horrible matchup. They did just steamroll the Cowboys, rather, so we could see a negative game script here. But I think Howard in a prime position if you need a running back and you miss on some of those earlier names. If you need a tight end, put this guy at the top of the list. I think Pat Freiermuth is a quality tight end 1 moving forward, well worth 10 to 12% of your FAAB if you're desperate for the position. He's now had 3 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns this last week, 3 touchdowns across his last 2 games, in addition to 13 targets, 9 receptions, 87 yards. We've seen every week, and I talk about this guy every week as like stash him. In fact, the truth tells me shut the hell up about Pat Freiermuth. I've had enough of him until now. It's coming to fruition these last couple weeks. Season high in snaps this last week with Eric Ebron missing yet another game. He did practice in limited fashion. I imagine Ebron will be back. I'm just sitting here thinking it doesn't matter when Ebron comes back because I think Freiermuth is the guy now moving forward. 43 yards and 2 scores this past week on 6 targets. Just a great bet for the end zone each and every week. And at tight end, if you're going down into that like mud of the 10 through 15, you're looking for a touchdown anyways. Why not get one of the best options? He's shown great red zone chemistry, great body control of that huge frame. And again, a local guy. Got to support the local guy. Love you, Pat Fry. Get it done for Massachusetts over here. Continue to steamroll. Russell Gage, not on many lists I've seen this week, and I'm not sure why. Matt Ryan is looking juicy coming off a 300-yard day against a good Saints defense, leading a comeback win. He seems fired up. This Falcons team's playing fired up. And yes, I know Cordarrelle Patterson is the grease, the engine, whatever you want to call it, that makes this show go. But Russell Gage at receiver is not such a bad option otherwise. He led the team with 8 targets this last week, 64 yards, 7 catches, a nice, steady, season-high 26.7% target share. Goose egg the week before. I get the reservations, get the concern, but I think this stat line is much more in line with what we can come to expect for Russell Gage moving forward. I don't think the ceiling's that high. The floor isn't anything crazy either, but the facing an awful Dallas Cowboys defense that we just saw, Tim Patrick and Judy and Sutton roast. I could see Gage having himself a solid streamable day, and their schedule, the Falcons, is one of the easiest moving forward for passing offenses. I think between him, Kyle Pitts, we could see some good fireworks. I mean, not the most explosive fireworks, folks, but a solid, if you're desperate for wide receiver production, you can count on this guy for a little bit of volume moving forward. Eno Benjamin, maybe the highest upside guy down here a little bit later. 0% roster right now. If you're just stashing someone, I think you can do a whole lot worse than this guy. One of the freaky athletes coming out of Arizona State was awful in 2020. In fact, Kingsbury said, I don't know if this guy's going to continue his professional career, was his mindset coming into the year. And then Kingsbury's praising him. The way he has the offense down, the way he's practicing, the work ethic, everything. There's a night and day type of approach to the game. We saw some quality runs on his 9 carries. One was a 21-yard touchdown here, or almost 40 yards on his 9 carries, well over 4 yards per clip on it, and a score. And yes, I will fully admit how wrong I've been on James Conner after cutting him in week 2. Yes, that's been one of the worst decisions I've made in my entire fantasy career, certainly this year. But we can't sit here and pretend like James Conner is a lock to hold up to the future workload that's coming his way. I'm sure you've seen it, but in case not, Chase Edmonds headed to that short-term IR, probably out 4 to 6 weeks. If something happens to James Conner, which, as we all know, is, I'd say, likely, to be honest. But even if not, I think Eno Benjamin will mix in for 8 to 10 touches a week. That's pretty bankable for a running back, especially in a Kyler Murray-led offense. Could be very dangerous. I mean, even with Colt McCoy, they steamrolled. So I like Eno Benjamin as one of those guys that's out there in every league, and you have a bench spot available. You have some trash to cut. I think there's very, very real handcuff with benefits upside to this guy. I think he has as much upside as anybody on this list. So that's why I have him as high as 10. I really, maybe call me psycho, call me take locked. I don't care. Jeff Wilson, even though he didn't log a snap this week, at only 22% rostered, I think he does deserve to be on more rosters because we've just seen it before. We've seen 3 touchdown games in the championships. We've seen him lead last year, the team in rushing touchdowns, 10th in the NFL in rushing touchdowns, despite only playing 11 games. There is high touchdown upside here. Eli Mitchell, I got to say in the same breath, has seen now 89% of the running back carries last week. That was a season high. He's seen 80% in 4 of his 5 starts, but also saw 12% target share last week. Like Eli Mitchell might go down as one of the best waiver wire pickups. In fact, he will already based on what he's done. We know Cordell Patterson's the pickup of the year. Eli Mitchell going to trail him no matter what happens here. This is a slight back that has had rib injuries, arm injury. Like he's had some things, some dings and bruises popping up here. And I think, honestly, when he misses a little time, Jeff Wilson gets the reins. I don't know that he'll look back, and certainly for that playoff schedule, so juicy. So if you're looking more forward thinking, that 49ers playoff schedule is as juicy as it comes. I think Jeff Wilson, just like he was last year, season winner last year, history, endless loop. We could see it yet again. So I despite this awful week, I even used him, and it was just disgusting. I think we can move past it. In fact, Shanahan after the game said he only had 3 practices. We didn't want to use him if we didn't have to. We didn't have to. I think moving forward with a little more practice time, getting the legs under him, every report was he looks like a beast in practice. I think we're going to see more Jeff Wilson moving forward. Shanahan's lulling us to sleep again, folks. Backfield that you'll never know, similar to Kyle Shanahan, the Pats, but consistently turning up value is the Pats as well, just like the Shanahan backfield. Ramondre Stevenson, he'd be, as long as he's playing, one of my favorite ads of this week. 10 carries, 62 yards, looking like a steamroller that we saw in the preseason. Also hauling in 42 yards for the air, so over 100 scrimming yards for this guy. Love to see it. Absolute bruiser. But he got a concussion, as did, and the reason why all these guys are on the list, Damian Harris also saw a head injury here. He had the lowest share of running back carries of the year, 45%, Damian Harris. 16 opportunities for Harris, 12 for Stevenson, and then 10 for Bolden, who also had a solid day in his own right. 8 carries, 54 yards, in addition to 2 catches for 27. Those 81 scrimmage yards were a season high. So he set a season high. Stevenson set a season high. All these guys looking quite valuable in this offense. So moving forward, I think, whoever it is going to be, given how involved these backs are in the entire offense with Mac Jones leading the charge right now, I could see Bolden being a top 5 back coming up this week. So ultimately, keep your eye on this backfield. Sorry, my charger is, I don't know what's happening here. I hope this doesn't die on me, but we will see. It looks like it's plugged in. Wrong. Plugged in. Give me 1 sec. There we go. Now the charger's plugged in, folks. There we go. So Patriots backs have been such a meaningful part of the offense. We could continue to see it. Do want to emphasize a guy that got dropped in a ton of leagues when Jeudy came back. And yet, since Jeudy returned, Tim Patrick's led the team in back-to-back weeks in receiving yards. This role has been consistent, even with Jeudy there. He actually had a season-high 16.5 half PPR points this last week. Now, granted, Tim Patrick, 83% of the routes compared to 80% for Jeudy, 89% for Sutton. It's Sutton that's taking the monstrous hit here. 1 of 2 targets, 9 yards last week. Brutal for him. He's averaging 5.5 points per game with Jeudy in the lineup. Just awful stuff. Meanwhile, Patrick, 4 catches, 85 yards and a TD, a week after leading the team with over 60 yards. He's been above double digits in all but 2 games this year, Tim Patrick. Nice and steady. It's not sexy, but it's getting the job done. So if you need a wide receiver streamer, he gets Philly this week, which you got to imagine Slay goes on either Sutton or Jeudy. I think Patrick honestly is better when he's in the third role because he feasts on number 3 corners, one of the most underrated receivers in the league, in my opinion. Right up to last year, still one of the top guys on contested catch rate, and just got a nice nose for the end zone. I think after you got Philly, then the bye, so not the best. Then you got the Chargers, a good defense as well. But when you get the third corners, I don't think it really matters. And you got a nice stretch run with Kansas City, Detroit, and Cincy. So whether an injury happens or whether he continues to feast on number 3 corners, I think Tim Patrick, a nice solid little stream there for you at wide receiver, even with Jeudy back. In fact, he might even be better with Jeudy there. And then last couple here, DeSean Jackson, had to mention this guy, worth about 3% of your FAAB, maybe more if you're having a good feeling in the gut, because the guy can still burn. We saw him get deep with the Rams quite a few times. He was, averaging a team-high 14.7 yards per target, 202 catches, 143 yards, and a touchdown on his 7 targets of 20-plus yards downfield. And now he goes to Derek Carr offense, which historically is very conservative. Carr actually leads the league in 20-plus yard attempts downfield with 46 of them. Bryan Edwards has done nothing with it. Ruggs was decently solid with it, but we know obviously he is gone. I think Jackson could walk right in to a deep passing offense as one of the top options. Not bad at all. The guy has averaged the last 2 seasons. Only him and Ruggs are 2 of 7 guys to average 17 yards or more average depth of target with over 30 targets these last 2 seasons. And Jackson's graded higher on both seasons. Could see this guy stepping right in. We all have seen it. DeSean Jackson with a chip on his shoulder and a deep ball roll. I think he could definitely do some damage. And last guy of the top 15 here is Dan Arnold. Yet again, another week leading the team in receiving yards, in targets for the Jags. It wasn't anything that sexy this past week. What did he end up putting up? Like 60 yards, Dan Arnold? 60 yards, 4 catches. It's just like he's making plays. A beautiful catch along the sideline. Ultimately, looking solid each and every week. And it's been coming against pretty tough matchups. And certainly at least last week against the Jags, one of the toughest matchup against every position. The schedule does soften up these next few weeks. See Dan Arnold, if you miss out on Pat Fry, low, high-end tight end 2. Let's call it that. I don't even want to call him a tight end 1. I do want to toss out just one quick bonus name, an honorable mention. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones as that post-Beckham hype sleeper. I mean, he has been hyper efficient. Every time he gets work, we see Donovan Peoples-Jones absolutely smash. And yet again this week, even though he only ran 16 routes behind Jarvis Landry, behind Anthony Schwartz, he was the deep ball guy, the lid lifter, 86 yards on 2 catches and a score. I think that's going to be routine. Him and Baker have some nice chemistry. When Baker doesn't have to force it to somebody or ensure someone's getting their deep targets, he's at his best. I think every other week or so, we're going to see one of these deep strikes to Donovan Peoples-Jones, DPJ, stepping into the OBJ role and doing it better because Baker just loves the guy. And last, just Hail Mary stash, I think Donta Foreman. Promoted to the active roster after Adrian Peterson, certainly outplayed, outsnapped by both Jeremy McNichols, Adrian Peterson. I guess I shouldn't say outplayed, though, because we saw Foreman average 5.8 yards per attempt, far better than the 2.1 we saw from Adrian Peterson. McNichols did solid with the receiving work here. But I don't think either McNichols or Peterson are just going to disappear. I think Foreman, it would take an injury to one or the other. Peterson would obviously be the more valuable injury for Foreman. There is a chance at some point, though, in one of this offenses that seems to be finding its groove, a team that seems to be finding its groove more than that, I could see Foreman coming into some late stash value as the youngest back there, one of the 87th percentile speed scores. There's a little bit of juice there. And speaking of speed, Hail Mary streamer, maybe Matt Breida, 0% rostered. If Zach Moss's concussion lingers, they're facing the Jets. We just saw what Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines were able to do. And I wouldn't be shocked if the Bills try to reshape their identity a little bit, certainly at least to fit this matchup and pepper the running backs a little bit more. So don't be shocked if we see a sneaky good game out of Breida. Don't go and get him on your waiver wire this week. Right now. Get somebody more valuable or tougher to pick up. But ultimately, don't be shocked if Breida ends up going nuts. I guess I should mention, too, Justin Fields after last night, 18 points, had 90 PFF grade, his highest of the season, was the highest quarterback of this past week. Seems to be finally, like almost every play the announcers were saying, like every snap he seems to be gaining confidence. He's now had 20 and 18 across his last two by far season highs in fantasy points. Fresh off that bye, don't be shocked if that offense continues to mold to his strengths. And he picks it up down the stretch with that upside, that Konami upside we always rave about. We could see more and more Justin Fields stepping in there. Probably worth a stash for those of you that might need a quarterback for your stretch. All righty, folks. Thanks again so much for everyone who is here. Greatly, greatly appreciate it. Let's now get to all your questions, comments, everything you have as we hit there. If you haven't already, hitting that that like button would mean the world to help us get out to more people. If you're catching the replay or you're just new here and you haven't subbed already, please consider hitting that sub button, hitting that bell so you know when we're live, 7 p.m. every weekday, Monday through Thursday, as well as 11 a.m. on Sundays, folks. Just keep that in mind as well. We'd love to get to 2K this year. Kevin Rice, great to see you, but sad to read. Third straight loss, second straight week of being projected for 130 and scoring less than 90. Hate it. I hate the Yahoo projections. I've been projected for the same. It's been awful. Full team back. It's time to get the show back on the road, Kevin Rice. I absolutely hope so. Thinking of OBJ before he plays a snap to sell the hype? Yeah, please. I don't want to roster him anywhere. He's a team cancer in the real world. He's a team cancer in your fantasy locker room. He'll probably go to the Packers, and everybody's going to want him. So I'd probably wait till he lands with the Green Bay Packers, Kevin, and his value is going to skyrocket. Then you sell him. What up, Ward? Great to see you, man. Thanks for tuning in as you always do. Start James Conner and Hollywood Brown this week. Of course, Bailey Fields. I don't even really care who your other options are. Those guys are lineup locks. Certainly without Edmonds, James Conner, probably going to land in my top 7 running backs. I'll do my rankings later tonight, publish them tomorrow, and then we'll do the show tomorrow so I can really dig in. And Hollywood Brown's consistently going to be in my top 12 receivers moving forward. He's had 19 or more in every game, other than one with 3 drops and then 1 dud. Man, the guy's just been a beast all year. Hillary Stegna won her match by 0.24 on Johnson's final minute catch. That's what fantasy's all about, those last-minute plays that tilt the week and give you the backbreaker to your opponent. Awesome stuff. Pumped to hear the win. Michael Schneider, Wolf finally got a win for the locker room statement. That's what I love. Got rid of Mahomes, got everyone in shape. Bam. Send a message to the team, Schneider. That's what you needed. Somebody to really electrify your locker room. Good stuff, making a big move like that, a ballsy call. Ingram, a priority ad if you're a Kamara. Oh, certainly, right. You handcuff with benefits type of thing. It's tough to start them both if they're both on the field, but definitely got the handcuff upside there. And then Ingram, very viable to roster the rest of the year behind Kamara. Would you start Herbert or Stafford this week, sir? Asked Tywin. Tywin, I don't know yet. I haven't done my rankings. I don't know the matchups. Those two are ones that come down to the matchups for me every week. There's not one that's a clear, you got to play this guy no matter what, no matter who they're playing. I don't know who they're facing off the top of my head because I haven't done my rankings yet. I'll know more later tonight and certainly tomorrow at 7 p.m. if you want to come down to that. Running backs are hurting for Kyle Toons. What's up, brother? Gibson, McKissick, Darrell Williams, A.J. Dillon with Mixon on bye. I mean, that is pretty hurt. I think you're using Darrell Williams. I mean, we just saw him see, was it 22 touches compared to 4 for the next closest back? So he's got that role on lock. And then I don't know, Gibson, McKissick, they get the Bucks. I think you got to leave McKissick there in comeback mode. They're going to be chasing points. I don't know who A.J. Dillon has off the top of my head. He has been seeing some meaningful volume, though. I think right now, if my gut, without knowing the matchups, without knowing who's playing who, I would go Williams and McKissick, though, for your tunes. Starting Bobby Trees, Van Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk. Do you like Gallup or Corey Davis better than any of them? No, not Davis against Buffalo coming off an injury. I am intrigued to see how he fits in with this resurging passing attack for the Jets, but I don't think they're going to be surging against the very, very tough Buffalo defense there. Johnny Lau, retracted my earnest for Freeman claim off waiver wire due this morning. Chubb news. Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Keep the earnest, certainly for at least a 1 week rental. I do think Freeman's worth like adding at some points, but I wouldn't be dropping the earnest for it. You are a genius, Johnny Lau. Sam Darnold's out for multiple weeks. Knee-jerk reaction for more. Oh, that must be breaking news. I did not see that. Kevin Rice. I guess it can't really get worse for DJ Moore, can it? It's been an absolute horror show these last couple of weeks. I talked about this on last night's stream, the Risers and Fallers stream. Moore has gone from averaging 22.4 points per game in his first 4 weeks to averaging 10.1 points per game. He hasn't been a top 30 receiver for 4 straight weeks in Darnold's awful crumbling. 5 straight games without a QB1 performance, 2 passing TDs and 8 interceptions across his last 5 games. PJ Walker has not looked good on the NFL field, so I can't sit here and say it's like a market upgrade. Oh, yeah, let's celebrate. But it's one of those things like, could it be worse? I really don't think so. I just wish these guys made a move for Deshaun Watson this year and excited us all. What up, Moreno? You got a question from last night. Oh, yeah, sorry if I missed you, Robert Moreno. I know the questions got a little weird last night. It was awesome. We had, over 100 questions, but some got lost in the shuffle, and I apologize if we missed you, Moreno. It's worth holding on to Jeff Wilson and hope he gets the work. Yeah, we talked about him a little bit. I do think so, unless there's somebody more viable out there. I'd rather have A.J. Dillon, that's for sure. If A.J. Dillon's out there, I'd much rather have Dillon than Jeff Wilson. That's not even a question. I would be worried here as an Aaron Jones owner, given this recent work. He was one of my bigger fallers on the season-long big board, given that we saw 14 opportunities for Jones and 12 for Dillon, 2 opportunities separating these guys, and Dillon getting the receiving work. 4 catches for 44 yards compared to none for Aaron Jones. That's scary as an Aaron Jones roster. If you have him on your roster, absolutely, you need to have A.J. Dillon well ahead of Jeff Wilson and well ahead of anybody I talked about tonight. He would be my number 1 waiver wire ad, and it wouldn't be really even close. You have Darrell Williams, says Kyle Toons. Javonte Williams having to start. I'm going to Javonte this week. He has 37% broken tackle rate. Nobody else is even in 30% right now, according to PFF. Crazy how good this guy is. Apparently Vic Fangio doesn't know how good he is because he still can't shake Melvin Gordon, certainly not in the red zone. That's a rant for another day. Dearness Johnson, Mark Ingram, Howard, Hines, A.J. Dillon, better options. I do think Dearness, if you're looking for just a 1 week stream, I'd rather have above either of those guys. There's literally no other running back on the roster, and it's not like the Pats have a scary run D. So I think he is by far the best 1 week play. I do think A.J. Dillon should be on your roster, maybe even ahead of Darrell. I guess Darrell needs to be in your starting lineup, so you can't do that quite yet. But, man, if A.J. Dillon's out there, then you need to have him. Is Booker droppable? Barkley should be back after the bud, probably after the bye, is what you're saying there, Tunes. But, yeah, I think at this point you could. He's so good, though, in the games Barkley misses. If you have the space for him, I don't see the need to drop him. But, yeah, I mean, if A.J. Dillon's out there and you can drop Booker for him, yeah, something like that. Tunes, thanks for hyping us up, baby. Let's get those likes up indeed, Wolfpack. It helps us out more than you know. Continues to get this video out to more people. Get the crowd growing here. It would mean the world. And consider liking and subbing if you haven't already. According to Schefter, Dalvin Cook was a victim of domestic abuse. What? I did not see this report. Is he okay? Is he hurt? I don't even know if that's what that is. Schneider, let me know what's going on. Bye-bye, Gainwell. Yeah, Gainwell sucks. Cut him if you have him. No need to keep him even with a touchdown this week. Freiermuth, yeah, what a beast. Absolute legend. My favorite tight end ad of the week, well worth 12% or so of your FAAB. Darren's to ball out again and get a move in the offseason. Maybe he gets moved this offseason. I'm not sure, but certainly going to ball out as long as he gets the work. We saw it. With volume, that guy is a monster. And there's nobody else to go to this week. So, yeah, I think he's going to ball out yet again. Top waiver priorities for Grind Don't Stop. Ernest, Jordan Howard, and Eli Moore. I'm with you. The 3 of my top 7 guys. I have Dearness number 1, Eli Moore number 5, and Howard number 7. I am a little worried about Howard, like how unpredictable and gross his backfield can be from a week-to-week basis, and then Sanders comes back. Like, is he really going to have that much of a meaningful workload? Maybe, just maybe. But I question this. Denny Howard could be on the 53-man roster after moves today by the Birds. No more. I could see that for sure. It does sound like they want to keep him up there even when Sanders comes back. So, yeah, I mean, the way he's balling out, the way they're feeding him, I don't see him going back to the practice squad, which is just a nightmare for Sanders and everybody else involved there in that backfield. Who's more droppable, Scott or Tony? Honestly, either. And it sucks to say because I love Tony as a player. There's nobody worse in the NFL. I guess I talked about Nagy, how much I hate him. I honestly think even worse than him is Jason Garrett as a play caller. 30% target share going to Kyle goddamn Rudolph. 5% going to Tony. The most electric rookie you've had in there since Odell. In fact, he beat Odell's rookie receiving yards. Tony is so good as a talent, I'd hate to drop him. So I'd say Scott's probably more expendable. How could you ever trust, this type of workload for Scott? 10 carries and then 5. Who knows what he's going to get. But I don't know that either are must holds if there's enough talent out there for your grind don't stop. Roster of backup tight end, I don't think you need it. No. Pitts is a top 3 tight end, moving forward. I don't think you need that backup tight end. No. You can, if he gets hurt, then you're probably screwed anyways, and you can find something else on waiver wires. Tony, I guess, yeah, maybe that bye week, maybe he starts to play. I don't exactly the talent. I side with the talent there. If you're not using Boston Scott in your lineup, and newsflash, you probably shouldn't, I would definitely hold on to Tony and cut Scott. Thinking about trading Hunter Henry, says Johnny Lau. For Freiermuth heading into the playoffs for sheer volume and upside, I think you could do it. I mean, they're kind of both touchdown or bust options, with Fry having a little more upside week to week. I have no problem with you going Hunter Henry over, having Pat Fry above him. Henry has scored a few more touchdowns on the season, but we've just seen Fry get more and more involved. I guess the one rub would be, does this continue when Ebron comes back? I sure think it does, but it's not a guarantee. But yeah, I have no problem with you doing that, Johnny Lau. No problem at all. What up, Giuseppe? Great to see you. Pepe, thanks for showing up, man. Good to see you as always. I slept on Judy all last year. Was more of a CeeDee Lamb guy coming out. Now I see the hype. Oh, yeah, he is so good. When he caught that ball and just zipped up the field after the catch, like this, you just watch him pop. One of those players that is clearly at a different level. I prefer CeeDee Lamb myself. I mean, obviously, as fantasy-wise, real-life-wise, I think CeeDee's the best player to come out of that class, wide receiver class. But, man, Judy is not too far behind by any means. Really big fan. Who has the bigger game Thursday night, Bateman or Waddle? I got to bank on Waddle. And just because of the targets. The guy hasn't seen fewer than 10 in, 5 straight weeks? I'll bank on the guaranteed volume. As much as I love Bateman and hope the blow-up week is coming for him, grind non-stop, you know that. We've been rooting together for this for a while. Watkins could be back, and he hasn't really broken out even without him. And I love Bateman. I love the player. I hope it happens, but we're seeing it with Waddle. He's 8 catches, 83 yards last week. The volume, everything. Got to love some Waddle. Would you drop Boston Scott? You have Sanders. I don't know if any of them are rosterable. Jeff Wilson, you have Mitchell or Hunter Henry for AJ. Yes, any of them. I think Wilson's your first drop, or Scott. Either of them are fine with me. Scott's probably more useless. I could see Wilson actually coming into value. I don't see Scott. He might have another week or two where you're like, God damn, I could have used him, but meaningful wise, now you're not seeing much. I saw another like coming. I appreciate that. And everybody else out there, if you can't, if you haven't already, consider giving us that like so we can continue to grow the pack and get out to more people. It'd be very appreciated. Julio Jones hyped this week. Why? I don't know why he's being hyped up. That man is a bust. I mean, if he's on waivers, I guess, like, why not? It's still Julio, but it's not really Julio anymore. I'm done with that experiment. I never really was in on it. I don't have him anywhere, and I don't really feel the need to get him anywhere. Tyrod sucks. Yeah, I that was a bad recommendation from me, Pepe, but, like, honestly, if you look at the other options, Jordan Love sucked. Like, there's very few streamers that panned out last week. There's very few real quarterbacks. Burrow had less than Tyrod. Like, just a gross, weird week in fantasy for the most part. What do you think about the Cardinals, man? Next, Benjamin, I like him. I talked about him, grind, don't stop. If you want to rewind it a little bit later or re-listen to the entire show, I'm into it. I think it's, 8 to 10 carries, a nice handcuff with benefits. And one of the better handcuffs, given we know Connor's injury history. Connor's looking like a man on a mission, but we've seen the guy falter and crumble and get hurt under heavy workloads in the past. Wouldn't be shocked to see that by any means moving forward. A lot of injured running backs are returning. Great timing indeed, including a guy like Chris Carson, likely to play on Wednesday. Seems like he's trending towards being in. And Millie C, if Carson's there's no reason to hold on to Collins. There is some handcuff upside, sure. Especially when Wilson's back, the backfield becomes more valuable given just the offense is better. But Collins is not a must-hold. If there's somebody with some juice out there, absolutely cuttable. Trade J-Rob for Godwin before nice. Especially if AB doesn't look great in that rehab he's doing right now. I think it's a great move. I've recommended a couple people do that exact lateral move, Mike Clay. I think it's a great play. Herbert plays Minnesota, so it's looking good for him. Oh, yeah, that's a great matchup. Pathetic defense there. So, yeah, that's probably who I'm going with. 4-0 this week. Love to hear it, too. And just seems like your season's getting back on track. That's what I like to see. Start Freeman if Lat Murray's out for Thursday Night Football. Yeah, I think absolutely. Miami is a cakewalk matchup. And Freeman's got a touchdown in 3 straight games. Very, very viable as a streamer should Murray be out. Traded for Javonte Williams, gave Waddle PPR. Good trade. I like that where your head's at. Like whereas Javonte, I don't know that Waddle will win anybody a league this year. He's going to be far more usable than Javonte unless Javonte gets the true takeover. Now, if that happens, whether it's a Gordon injury, whether the coaching staff wakes up and sees this guy's a top 5 running back in the NFL right now, the most yards after contact, even though he's only seen half the carries of the next closest guy. I mean, every metric tells you how damn good Javonte is. You don't need me to sit here and tell you that. If he takes over, he's going to be a top 5 running back for fantasy. We're seeing Gordon 6 touchdowns across the last 6 games, only 1 for Javonte, but Javonte's running for 111 yards on 17 carries, looking like a monster. If those touchdowns went his way, he'd be a season winner. So, Gillard, it's like, were you using Waddle? Because if so, then it hurts. It takes a hit out of your lineup. But if this was a guy that's kind of on your bench anyways and you're just looking for upside, then Javonte has the season-winning upside. So this is it's one that you can evaluate at the end of the year and say, did anything happen that gave Javonte the starting role? Because it's not going to get handed to him. Probably going to take an injury or like a true bad fumble or something of that nature. But if it does happen, I mean, that guy's going to win leagues. So I think this is a good move unless you were really reliant upon Waddle, because I don't think Williams is valuable as a starter yet. Greg Z out. Who's a good replacement? Carlson, Bullock, Boswell, or Johnson with the Saints. I don't fucking know, Millie. It's kicker. Who's facing Detroit this week? Go get them. Who's facing like the Jets this week? Go get them. I guess Tyler Bass is facing the Jets, so he won't be out there. But I think Bullock's looked pretty damn good. Without knowing the matchups, that's probably where I'm leaning. Would you start Gibson or Renfro? I would probably go Renfro. I don't trust Gibson against a tough Bucs defense this coming week. And Renfro is just a nice, steady 9 targets this week, touchdown. Nice, even a little bit more of a high floor, high ceiling without Ruggs now there. Julio or Judy, flex PPR. I would go Judy, definitely. I can't go Julio. Man, so what is this news? I did not see any of this on Dalvin Cook. So this could be huge if this ends up, I don't know. We'll find out. So keep that in mind for sure. I'll look into that as we go. Bateman looking at a blow-up spot versus Miami this week. Yeah, it could definitely be a blow-up spot. Yeah, so JP, your comment's a little off, it seems like. Somebody else was saying he's the victim of domestic abuse and extortion. I have he's not the one that would be going to jail at this point. Sounds like he's the victim of whatever's going on. I have no idea what this situation is or what could be happening. It I guess right as we went live that came out. So we'll look more into it, but I don't think it's going to impact Dalvin's playing status and fantasy status if he's the one that's the victim, at least. I don't know. We got to keep tracking that one. That's a strange story. If anybody's seen any new details on it, let us know, because I haven't had a chance to look that up yet. I'm pulling up like the news blurbs right now and seeing if there's anything that has popped up on that. Very strange story, but it doesn't seem like he's the one that is the aggressor. He's the victim of domestic abuse. Sounds like awful stuff. Pending litigation. Who knows? It just sounds like he should be okay to play, I guess. But prayers up that the guy's okay. I don't know. Just a weird story. Really unsettling. So let's see how this plays out. But again, tricky. I do think there could be a blow-up spot. So tricky to say, though. He hasn't blown up without Watkins in the lineup. Watkins is probably going to be back. Miami is certainly a very exploitable defense. My question is, do they put up enough points that they keep chucking and give Bateman enough volume? I'm a little worried that the answer will be no to that one. So it could be, it should be, it's a bad defense. I'll be probably streaming him. But as good as and encouraging as the snap rates are and everything, I think we all just keep wanting it so bad we just can't talk that one into existence. Could easily happen, though. I'll probably be playing him and hoping it happens, though. We'll see. Defense this week, Bills or Cardinals? I don't know. Again, guys, sit star questions. Give me those tomorrow, 7 p.m. when I do the ranking show. I don't know matchups. I haven't made my rankings. I do think the Bills get the Jets, and I can't imagine there's a better matchup than that for the Cardinals, but we'll find out. I don't know. Ask sit starts tomorrow, please. Do I start Darrell Williams if Clyde returns? That's going to be tricky. That's tricky for sure. It's not a bad match against the Raiders, so I think they'll probably ease Clyde in, so I think so, grind. Stash Freiermuth, yeah, 21 last night. Bam. Huge for you, Howland. Love to hear it. Marvin Jones can definitely be dropped. I'd rather have Van Jefferson. Marvin Jones, I mean, they're both deep threats. Give me the one attached to Stafford. Seems like a no-brainer for me. Deontay Johnson or Keenan Allen? Oh, man, that's a tough one, Tyler, each and every week. Don't know the matchups off the top of my head. More weeks I actually lean Deontay, but we just saw Keenan back-to-back weeks with 13 targets. Going to be tough to sit him. Lobo Buenos Noches, one for waiver, full PPR. Dearness, Hines, or Pollard? So Tomas from Panama. Good to see you, brother. I'm glad you're here. This comes down to this. Do you need Dearness? Do you need a starting running back? Then he's the obvious one, right? He's going to be a smash play as the last man standing, probably a 20-point stream this week. You need the stream? He's in. If you're just stashing someone on the bench, you have good starters, and you don't really need the starter, I think Pollard, by all means, is by far the highest upside guy. One of the best plays you can have in fantasy football on your bench. So that just comes down to need. Ertz, Gesicki, Logan need to drop one. I think Ertz can get out of there. I mean, maybe even Logan. Gesicki's your guy either way. So I'd say Ertz is probably my first cut at tight end. Run double tight end with Fry and Hawk. What could go wrong? A whole lot. But if that's your best options, I mean, I go Kelsey Knox often when Knox is healthy. So let it rip. Feel this week Bateman scores his first touchdown. I'm into it, grind. I'd love to see it. Absolutely. Do I trade away Hawk for Higgins and Waddle? I already have Gesicki. Yeah, I think you could absolutely pull that off, Charlie. I think Gesicki is as good as Hawk for fantasy purposes moving forward. That's a haul. Higgins and Waddle, I mean, those are two top 30 receivers moving forward. I'm there. No, Dalvin's the victim. Yeah, so Mike Clay, a couple of the Wolfpack commenting in. As always, thank you guys for coming in there. According to his agent, Zach Hiller, there's pending litigation. Just hope he's okay. I don't know if this is a new situation or if this is something that's been building up. Here we go. So roughly a year ago, someone broke into his home. The female who did it is a surgeon in the U.S. military. He attacked Cook and in his home while he had a guest present. Crazy story. Thank you for adding some more details, Tunes. Who knows what's going to happen there? Jeff Lee, awesome to see you, brother. Thanks so much. We always appreciate having you here. Thank you, Wolfster. Absolutely. Glad to have you. What's up, Gary W.? What's up, Wolfpack? Great to see you, man. Anyone getting Melvin Gordon? I don't think he's one of those guys that's just like an unsexy, even though he just keeps getting touchdowns. No one really wants him. So I don't think you're going to get fair value. He might be a good, toss him as a package deal and see if somebody bites on the recent touchdowns. But I doubt you're going to get fair value because Gordon just doesn't have any real dripping sex appeal. Even though he just continues to score touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. He should have more appeal than he has, Gary. But I imagine you're not going to get anything close to what he's producing for you. Hold Fields through the bye. I don't know that you need to, Brian. But again, 20 and 18 points, the best 2 weeks of the season coming off those games. I just still don't really love Nagy. I certainly know I don't love Nagy. I hate Nagy. I don't know that this improves much moving forward. Johnny, the victims are the Viking squad under Mike Zimmer. Yeah, fuck. Awful. I think that he's headed towards the hot seat and potentially getting fired this year, it seems, for sure. Number 2, priority on D'Ernest or Freeman, knowing they might not start. Do you need them to start for you? Because if so, I would do it for D'Ernest. If you're desperate for a stream, you're desperate for a win, the guy's probably going to start and get 20 points for you this week. So, yeah, I would on him. Freeman, just like decent value, but I don't think I'd blow a number 2 priority. I'd only blow that if you really need the win and you really need the stream. Okay, yeah. So a couple of you guys commenting in. And she's trying to extort. Oh, yeah. Wild situation. Let's see how that one plays out. Good Lord. Would you trade my Thielen, Gronk, and Claypool for Tyreek and Kadarius? Kadarius doesn't really add much. It was like, are all 3 of those guys worth Tyreek? And I don't think so, unless you just don't start them. Like, you probably have Thielen and Claypool in your lineup, right? That seems like a pretty hefty haul, especially if Gronk's healthy after the bye, especially with Mahomes sucking. But if you don't use all those guys and it's just like you're consolidating depth for a stud, I think Tyreek is worth that move. But that all comes down to the roster, brother. Eli Mitchell for CD. Depends on your team needs. Honestly, Mitchell's right up there with CeeDee Lamb on the rest of the season big board, though. So unless you have great running back depth, maybe. Keeping Wilson, although Shanahan's total dickhead, Jeff Lee. I agree. I'm going to continue to stash him, though, and see what happens. I would not be shocked to see him become a league winner at all. Waddle, Evans, basement. Nice. Solid receiving core there. Trying to shop Kamara, who would you go for? I don't know, grind. You could probably get yourself a nice high-end wide receiver 1, right? Depends, what are you shopping for? Like, you looking for backs? Why would you be moving Kamara in that case? So maybe you can get Kelsey for him. Maybe you can get a top-end wide receiver. Look at the rest of the season big board. That'll give you a better picture. Trade Mixon for CD. I'd rather have Mixon than CD myself. See if you can move Jacobs in a package for a CD. Greg Z on COVID list. Carlson, Bullock, Boswell. I prefer Bullock, but I don't know their matchups off the top of my head. So I'll know more tomorrow. Come back tomorrow. Jalen Hurts and Connor for Josh Allen. Happy about it until I played the guy. Oh, man. Yeah, Connor ended up smashing you. And now with Chase Edmonds hurt, I don't know that I love the move. I think long-term that pans out for you, especially because Connor's probably going to get hurt with the work. But that always sucks. But indeed, I love the positivity, Matt Feeney. Upward and onward, baby. Love it. Debo and DK. Technically, Tyreek would be your 3. Oh, so, when you have that depth, Sean, then, yeah, I think you can pull that off. Pull that trigger, baby. This is the time to consolidate depth. You can't, bench plays don't really matter in the playoffs. Of course, injuries could happen and the depth would play but I think this is the time to do it. Wolfpack, thanks so much for being here. Engaged. Awesome amount of questions over there on YouTube. At 36 a year, if you're on your way out, you don't mind hitting that thumbs up button if you haven't already. It would mean the world to keep getting us out to more people. If you haven't subbed, that would also really help us to continue climb. Hit that 2K goal by the end of the year would be awesome. Wolfpack. So thanks again for being here, whether you're here live or catching the replay. Really means the world that you're out here looking for our analysis and our take on everything. You can find all our content at rotostreetjournal.com. Breed and Feed Fantasy Wolves. I'm live Monday through Thursday, 7 p.m. Also Sunday, though. This Sunday, going to be at the Pats game, folks. Can't wait. But I won't be live on Sunday. I know you guys need your sit starts, though, so I'll probably be live on Saturday with my man, CJ. So ultimately, we will see. Let's call it Saturday, 11 a.m., though, right now for our live stream. Tomorrow, back for your ranking show. Can't wait, Wolfpack. Thanks again so much for being here. And best of luck on your waiver wires. Hope you get everybody you need. Until tomorrow, the Wolf of the Fantasy Sheep be the Wolf guys. Later.